Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome to Fantasia. For today, we're going to be jumping into another session of Epic 7L today. Got some more RTA clips for you guys. So, I actually have quite a few fun matches to share with you all, and I think it's going to start around here. Now, as you can see, I am climbing a bit higher every single day. We're in the 3,000 points now, which is quite nice. We're still several hundred away from reaching Emperor, but here we go. We got some fun things here, and I start off with the first pick. I've been getting first pick quite a lot lately, and I don't really like it, but decided to go with DJB because if I pick Arwell, then usually people counterpick DJB into me, and I don't really like fighting him. So went for the DJB. My opponent actually just went C. Lilius and a Ravi, which is quite unusual for me at the time, because seeing a Ravi pick so early, I was like, well, okay. I decided to counterpick with A-Raz and LQC. LQC is built now to counter the A-Ravi, although she is a bit slow. She lost a bit of damage, but she is really tanky. My opponent follows up with Arwell, probably for the buff strip against the Little Queen Charlotte to stun her and control her, and Spectre Tenebria, because LQC is a single target unit. I needed to follow up with some form of AoE, and I decided, you know what, this top four, I can fight those. So I bring in Solitaria and Pirate Captain Flan. My opponent picks the Fairy Tale Tenebria, and I ban her out. Unfortunately, my opponent actually bans my DJB, so I don't have any cleanser, and LQC is gonna just be thrown to the wolves here. Got the attack down for 2 turns immediately, so you know I can't be bonking that A-Ravi with an attack down. C. Lilius, though, now has free reign over provoking things and whatever she wants to do. She actually just goes for the LQC, which didn't really matter in the end, because, I mean, she had attack down. I wasn't going to S3 or anything. Go for the Solitaria S3. I decided, okay, well, both of my control units got through. Let's take advantage of it. We're going to stun the A-Ravi, make sure there's no shenanigans with her. She's the primary damage dealer on the team, at least in my eyes here, because Spectre Tenebria can be pretty easily popped. So, at this point, Pirate Captain Flan gets to go. The Arwell has immunity, which I didn't really like, so we aren't able to put a bomb on her, but because there's no cleanse, A-Ravi will be bombed on the next turn. If a unit's stunned and they have 2-turn bomb on them, the next turn they'll be out of stun, and then when they loop around to take their turn, they're gonna get stunned again because the bomb detonates. So I'm good with dealing with A-Ravi. She's not gonna be taking a turn for quite a while. Spectre Tenebria is the main focus as of right now, and you see the Arwell went ahead and stunned my Pirate Captain Flan, and Spectre Tenebria here, I mean, LQC is provoked. She can either stun the A-Raz, or she can go for the Pirate Captain Flan, and Flans usually don't have any resist, so that would be the safest option. It also just prevents her from prematurely detonating bombs and putting more damage onto the opponent. So, LQC, the redirect or provoke goes into A-Ravi because she has the highest amount of health. And we're looking pretty decent here. Pirate Captain Flan's not in great shape. But again, A-Ravi loses that turn, Spectre loses the next turn. C. Lilius, after this dual attack here, is not going to be able to go either. Luckily, Spectre does not dual attack with her. And now we got our Solitaria going. Pirate Captain Flan should be able to loop out of her stun pretty quickly because, again, there's not much damage from the other team right now. Especially if the Spectre takes a turn and gets stunned. We get the immunity strip from LQC, but it's fine. She always gets the immunity buff when she S1s. There you go. See, Lilius losing that turn there, which was very crucial, because that means there's no dual attacking shenanigans. Now with A-Raz, I do have souls, and I could soul burn to S2. And try to, like, defense break here. So I do that, and we go into the Arwell. No defense break, unfortunately. Didn't even proc, but gave the LQC a 2-turn immunity buff, and with the Solitaria, look at the A-Ravi's fighting spirit. She has none, which means she won't be pushing up whenever I attack her. So one of the good things about Solitaria into A-Ravi is that you can really quickly dwindle down her fighting spirit and control her. So LQC has one more turn until she gets rid of that pesky attack down. We are not going to be popping that S3 when she has that attack down, because we want to be able to maximize the damage we do against the A Ravi, and she's on Proof of Valor as well. So now, Pirate Captain Flan gets to take the turn. We have one turn left until an S3, so we're just going to bomb the A Ravi and stun her again. See, Lilius doesn't really have anything she can do besides S2, unless she dual attacks here. And again, luckily, we did win the 50-50, and she brought the Arwell instead of Spectre. So with that, Solitaria has her S3 up, but I could also just go for an S1 if I really wanted to try to control that Spectre. But because she's so far back on the combat readiness bar, an S3 was better to just prevent Lilius from getting that S3 off. I don't want her to attack down the LQC, but unfortunately, Arwell already turn cycled back into her stun. So luckily though, LQC managed to resist. Finally get a 15%. That helps us out quite a bit. And Araz is going to go and strip that barrier off of the Arwell. We have another S3 with the Pirate Captain Flan. Now, Spectre Tenebria is going to be taking the turn. She has immunity, so I might as well just rip this and plant bombs so that even if Pirate Captain Flan dies, we will still be able to exert some form of control over the team, right? Like a C. Lilius, she's stunned and she has the bomb, so she effectively loses 2 turns. Spectre's going for the soul burn onto my Pirate Captain Flan. My opponent actually gets really lucky here, hits Solitaria out of the stealth and hits her again. But yeah, at this point, I'm looking pretty good. LQC has a lot of Hellcutter stacks. We're getting the stuns. A Ravi again, no fighting spirit. Look at that. Stunned Spectre as well. And at this point, with A-Raz, I mean, we just heal up a little bit with the S3. I don't want a dual attack here, even though it was an option, because you'll lose these stacks of Hellcutter with LQC, and I really, really want this 13-stack Hellcutter to pop off. So, ticking time bomb LQC, we got the S3 up. Now we're going to let it rip into that A-Ravi. She has Proof of Valor, but it's absolutely fine. Blows up everything else, and now look at that. A-Raz with that S2 ready. We're just going to go ahead and chop down that A-Ravi there. And there you go. It was quite a long match, and a lot of control involved, but worked out in the end in our favor. And we have another match over here that I want to share. It's another one where I go for an Arwell DJB. I actually got a second pick for this match, and those are my usual picks into C. Lilius. Now, unfortunately, my opponent goes Flitica and Spectre Tenebria. Flitica's been very popular lately in these upper levels, providing that skill null, that strip, the skill null, and the reset. She is a very good utility unit. Seeing the first 3 units, I decided, well, Ed should fit quite well in here. And look at the pre-bans. My opponent pre-banned Bryceria and the Zahhawk, so I don't have to worry about any injury from Zahhawk or extra hit chance from the Bryceria against my team. So I was thinking about going for some evasion units, but I ended up going for the Bellion into the Spectre, and lo and behold, surprise, surprise, my opponent picks the Rylet and Aiden. Wonder why they pre-banned those 2 units, right? And then my last pick here was going to be a Senya. Senya is actually really strong into evasion units because if you have Spear of whatever Dawn thing, Spear of a New Dawn, her artifact, it's kind of like Harina's artifact as well. You could just do inflict like true damage that goes through evasion. And Senya is not a great unit for these guys to attack into because of the reflect damage as well. So let's go ahead and jump in and see what happened here. Right, I didn't have any healer because my DJB was actually banned. I banned my opponent's Flitica because I thought that, you know, looking at the teams, I anticipated DJB going bye-bye because the rest of my team is quite slow. And with that, I had to get rid of the Flitica because she has a skill null. Skill null with evasion units is really annoying because if you can get that lucky crit, but that crit happens to land against the unit when they have a skill null, that is unfortunate. So my opponent tries to go and provoke the Senya. Mine is a resistance Senya, so she actually does resist there a little bit, which is quite nice. Aiden takes the turn. They all have vigor buff, so they do get a little bit of extra attack, but no attack buff on the Aiden, which is quite nice. They hit the Bellion and break the barrier. My Bellion is on injury, so she's not going to be counter-attacking with that. However, we do proc a dual attack that I didn't quite really want, but it worked out in my favor because Ed actually gets triggered here when Aiden attacks him, because he had the attack down from the Sea Lilius. And that actually ended up stripping the Rylet, so live by evasion, die by evasion. We're going to take advantage of that and just chip him down with Arwal's S3, putting the barrier up on everybody, and, well, except Bellion, because she's unbuffable, but we're in a pretty decent position now. Spectre has that attack down from Ed, which is fantastic, because look at that. She's taking more reflect damage from the Senya. We're able to proc and get that barrier up and replenished on the team, even though it didn't really fade. And at this point, I didn't want to S3 with Bellion because it would give me a defense buff, but I have Unbuffable on. So I thought, well, I might as well wait until next turn where I can safely apply that defense buff. And yeah, just went for the S1 to hit that Spectre for as much damage as possible. Rylet is benefiting from the AoEs though, because every time he gets a dodge, then he gets an extra focus stack. And oh, look at that. Yep, my opponent goes and crits my Senya. But that's okay. We're gonna rip that S3. I don't really care at this point. We have an attack down, but I want the counter buff up. There we go. So the Rylet goes with the Sea Lilius into the Ed and misses. If he hit, we would have gotten blinded, and Ed would have been able to counter, but that didn't happen. Chipping away at the Sea Lilius because I don't really want to touch the Aiden right now. And with Ed's S3 up, oh yeah, you know, we're going to finish off that Aiden before she can do any more damage. Even on this, there's no damage mitigation on the team, and the Vigor buff had worn off. Okay, but you can see the Rylet there. Yeah, getting that extra proc from the Senya's counters and able to rip a big chunk of damage into my Ed, hitting even though he has 50% decreased hit chance. Now Spectre goes for the Bellion, and yeah, Senya can't counter there because of Spectre's skill, but right now my priority is to keep Ed alive, and because Rylet actually procced his skill, we're just going to go ahead and poke at him, try and deal as much damage as possible. For Bellion, I actually could have gone for the S3, but I decided to soul burn the S1 to try to get as much damage as possible and more debuffs onto the opponent. So Sea Lilius is provoked, as you can see. Rylet does hit, but look at that. The blind debuff allows Ed to finish off the Sea Lilius, and now it's just everyone against Rylet. We actually get lucky there, and we hit him. And strip the attack buff, but not lucky enough here, so he gets the proc, and thankfully this time he did miss. If he didn't miss, we might have been in a little bit of trouble, because he does have his S3 up. Now, would he have been able to survive the Senya? That's a little bit debatable. If he had hit with the previous skill then and killed Ed, he might have been able to kill Senya here, but there we go. He wasn't able to kill the Ed with his last S3, and then he surrenders, which was quite nice. Lucky for you guys, we got 2 more clips ready to go. So here's the next one, going up against Poketen. And this one here was interesting because my opponent actually took the DJB. It's something that has been pretty common as I climb higher. I first picked the Arwal, my opponent picked DJB and the A-Ravi. I need to start pre-banning A-Ravi soon because she's starting to get on my nerves with how often she's picked. Because DJB was picked, I went for Destina and LQC for the A-Ravi, but my opponent saw that I was going pretty slow and just went for the Sea Lilius as an opener and went with an Alencia as well. Not really sure why they went for that Alencia there, because I didn't really have anything that could that Alencia could really take advantage of, but I definitely took advantage of the Sea Lilius and Alencia, and I picked the Lionheart Sirmia because both those units have dual attacks or follow-up attacks, respectively. And then I ended up my draft with a Spectre Tenebria because there's no real AoE on my opponent's team, and my opponent ends with an LR Crow, so looks like we're pretty good to go. I banned the LR Crow because he's the AoE on their team, and my LQC gets banned out, so no big bonk damage this time around. So as expected, Sea Lilius opens, and Destina's pretty slow. She's not as fast as my DJB would be. So Sea Lilius just to pop off all her skills. She's gonna, of course, avoid the dual attack because why would you give Lionheart free skills? DJB here could barrier invert, but I believe my opponent holds it. Yeah, he just goes for the S1 and tries to stun, but doesn't really get anything with it. There's no reason for him to push up I don't think, because he doesn't really benefit from a Ravi just taking that turn, cycling off of that defense buff before all my DPS units go. So Spectre gets to go now, and we have an S3. There's no immunity on the team because DJB didn't pop anything, and so we get to waste Alencia's turn by stunning her. Yeah, I didn't want the Alencia to go because if she were to S1, I know it will proc the Lionheart Senya, but it would also just be a lot of injury damage, and it's not something I really want to deal with that early in the game. Aravi is going next. She has that defense buff and the barrier, so I decided to strip it with the Arwell and get that stun as well. So both of his DPS units lost their first turn because the DJB did not push them up. But now that I have a barrier on everybody, DJB's barrier inversion is definitely going to be used. It's going to be free. And it's going to be a lot of damage as well, making up for, I guess, the two DPSs not taking their turns. Aravi gets that dual attack there, so we get to proc the Lionheart Senya. And fortunately, Destina's barrier didn't get broken. Barrier inversion comes out. Everyone's blinded now, at least by all my DPS, which kind of sucks. But as you can see with the turn order, Lionheart Senya and Inspector Tenebria go after Destina, so we're looking pretty good. Alright, Alencia gets to take the turn, and I believe she goes for an S1 onto my Lionheart. Yeah, goes for the Soul Burn here, and gets that defense break. So unfortunate because Lionheart Senya not only relies on defense for survival, but defense scaling for damage. Yeah, my opponent emoted there with a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he was able to get that defense break. Now, the Aravi goes for the S1. As you can see, the Proof of Valor there, and that defense buff with Arwell's mitigation means that even with defense break, it's not going to be a ton of damage. So the Aravi had saved her S3. See, Lily is going for the dual attack. Guardian Ice Crystals healing up a little bit. And Lionheart Senya is looking pretty good. Still healthy. Destina goes and tops her off, though. Tops off the Spectre and gets rid of the blind so that we can actually do some damage. I decide to not use the Soul Burn here. There's no reason to. We're just going to hold on to it. Nice little dual attack to strip the immunity off of the Alencia. Not that it really mattered, because I don't really have debuffs on the team aside from Spectre. So we're just going to chop away at the Sea Lilias for some damage. And now we rip that Lionheart Senya's S3. There's no real defensive buffs on the opponent's team, besides the defense buff on Aravi. There's no vigor buff or anything. And I don't want to finish off the Sea Lilias because that dual attack is going to fuel my Lionheart Senya on the next turn. But I do want to take out that Alencia, seeing as she was able to defense break my Lionheart Senya. It was a little too risky to keep her alive. The heal coming out of DJB was actually pretty big, and Sea Lilias is going to take the turn now. So yeah, she can S2 to avoid doing the dual attack and just gets a barrier for his Aravi, which is quite nice. But Aravi at this point can't really do enough damage to finish me off. It's a little too early to pop that S3. Maybe if she had popped it earlier when I was defense broken, she would have gotten that kill. So a bit of a misplay for my opponent, and it's at this point that I pretty much felt very comfortable with what I had. Lionheart would get a proc off of Sea Lilias' dual attack on the next turn, and all we had to do was really just control this Aravi. If I can stun this Aravi here with Arwell, then if Sea Lilias does dual attack, it'll dual attack with DJB, and that's no damage whatsoever. Yeah, so DJB, I was checking the skills, and he has 2 more turns until he gets off cooldown. So with that Aravi stunned and both of his support units super low, my opponent ends up calling it quits. Alright, and last but not least, we have another match. The last one here we're going to showcase against this Korean player. So my opponent, I think, yeah, got second pick. So I got first pick. Again, I started off with DJB. But this time I decided to play a little bit more aggressively once I saw that there's another Sea Lilias Aravi team getting thrown my way. So instead of going for Arwell, I just went for an Araz. My DJB is pretty fast, and so is my Araz, so I was thinking maybe we could defense break and do some shenanigans there. Went for the LQC to try to bonk that Aravi. It was met with a Spectre Tenebria. It seems pretty common, because LQC is a single target unit. Spectre is pretty safe. And there's a Bellion coming out too. So with Bellion, Aravi, and Spectre, I thought, okay, this is actually a very niche but perfect situation for Archdemon to come out. And with Archdemon there, my opponent, and I went for Ning Ning. My Ning Ning's really fast. My fastest unit, actually. And so that was just in case DJB got banned. I'd have something to go first with, because I can always ban the Sea Lilias. And seeing my opponent pick the Rylet last, I decided, okay, we're going to ban the Sea Lilia, so there's no way that she can contest. My opponent can contest here. So Ning Ning gets banned on my side, so no attack buff for the LQC, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Let's go ahead and start off here. DJB going and pushing up the whole team. I really wanted Archdemon to go before my opponent could, so I can at least seal. As you can see, the Rylet and the Aravi, neither of them have immunity, so it was going to be pretty nice picking at them. At this point, I think the A-Raws, I think I just go for a defense buff, because I see the opponent's going to be going right after me and all of my units. Unfortunately, Bellion does get a counter, and so does the Rylet double-edged Crescent. Unfortunate there. LQC actually gets the immunity stripped, but not too much to worry about. We will be able to use our S3 here. I know it's a little bit early, because it's not too many Hellcutter stacks, and I don't have an attack buff or anything to increase my damage. But it's worthwhile getting that Aravi quite low. She's on Proof of Valor, but there you go. Look at that splash damage, right? My goal right now is to take out the Spectre Tenebria as soon as possible. And the Aravi is just going to hit the LQC, but with the defense buff, she's actually quite tanky. Thankfully, Archdemon actually did hit her seal and managed to crit as well. Look at that, stripping the evasion off of the Rylet, and that Spectre is so low. Rylet does have an S3, so he's going to pop it, and he's going to go straight into the LQC. Everyone seems to be focusing her down here, but little do they know the real threat is actually the Rylet. Even with that attack buff, LQC, super tanky. Mine's built with like 18k HP. Look at that, hardly scratching her, and this is a damaged Spectre, as you can tell by her health. So she rips an S3 into the LQC. She is A-okay. She actually resists the stun, which is quite nice. But now Bellion gets to go, and she has an S3 to pop. It's an AoE, and I'm really hoping that my Archdemon gets to counter here. But of course, being my Archdemon, she never does. And DJB gets to take a turn. Now, LQC has poison on her, so I go for the hit onto Rylet. He has no evasion because he's sealed, just to try to heal the LQC a little bit more. And at this point with A-Raws, I have the ability to dual attack, no soul burn, but it is worth it to go for the dual attack and defense break. LQC does a little bit more damage, gets that immunity, we live, but we go for the S1 and go for a dual attack with our Archdemon. No seal on the Bellion though. But at this point I don't want to risk not sealing somebody, so I actually end up hitting the Rylet and just praying that my Archdemon procs. Unfortunately, the counter from Bellion procs, taking out my LQC, but we do get to proc with the Archdemon, and we take out the Spectre. Aravi is blind, and Bellion's defense broken. And with Archdemon in the back, it's really hard for this Aravi to kill my Archdemon because of A-Raw's barrier that would occur, right? So I end up blinding the Aravi and the Bellion, making sure that they can't hit here, and hoping that we get some form of a counter out of this Archdemon. But no, my Archdemon has not countered this entire match, I don't think. And with A-Raw's blinded, I decided why not just go for a strip on the Bellion. Did not get that, but Archdemon did have an S3, so we end up popping that, and I believe we land a defense break on that Aravi, which is quite nice. We don't have a soul burn, but we end up still managing to get that seal, and the extra proc here should finish things off. There you go, Fairy Tale for a Nightmare procking, and then the burns. So quite a satisfying little way to end things off. I don't really get to use Archdemon very much, and she hardly ever procs for me in RTA, but today was a little bit of an exception, although she didn't counter at all. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe for more Epic 7 content. And until next time, take care.